Hello everybody, my name is Flynn. I am the Creative Director here at RocketMill, and today my talk is called Humans and Technology, Where's It All Heading? So I've been doing some pondering, that's my pondering face. I've been pondering about humans and how our interaction with technology is developing and where it is now. And kind of my way of articulating this, I'm going to do in a typical creative fashion rather than give you lots of slides about it. I'm going to give you a storyboard to try and bring it to life a little bit more. So here we go, scene one. Simon wakes up 5 years from now and his alarm goes off. Simon's routine on his phone automatically turns his smart heating on and his car heater to get rid of the frost off his windshield. And his coffee machine kicks into gear to make sure it's ready for when he comes downstairs. But not only that, 3 minutes after, Simon's clothes steamer kicks into action. It takes about 5 minutes to do the steam and then about 2 minutes to put it on. Simon puts his freshly steamed shirt and walks on downstairs to make breakfast and drink his coffee. He had to shower the night before, by the way, just to make sure. He's a clean guy. Simon opens the fridge to get the milk out for his cereal, but he's run out. No fear, Simon asks his voice assistant to add some milk to the shopping list. Milk added to your shopping list, thank you, Google Assistant, others are available. Simon has toast instead and asks his voice assistant about the weather outside. Simon checks his phone and sees his journey to work has changed due to an accident. It asks if he wants to send to his car. He says yes. Simon leaves at exactly 6:45 and drives to work in his energy-efficient electric car. Simon arrives at work, plugs in his charger to the pod point and activates the charge on his phone. While Simon is walking to work, his car messages his computer to tell him that he's arrived. His computer switches on, brings up his journey information about his battery and so forth, today's appointment and all of his unread emails. He walks into work, sits down and reads his first email. It's an advert. It reads, "Never run out of milk again. The Amazon smart refrigerator will order your groceries before you need to restock." So this, for me, is a bit of a glimpse into how the future might be in regards to customer experience, how things are talking to each other, how our relationship with technology has changed, and ultimately how advertising plays a part in that. So all of these kind of technologies already exist. We've got smart refrigerators in LG, Nest, Google Assistant, hybrid cars which have APIs. They're kind of finding their feet when it comes to them talking to each other and the capabilities that they have between them. But yeah, the kind of thing I touched on earlier was the relationship with technology is starting to change, and that's a really interesting part for me. It's no longer being a distraction and actually being an enabler in us to maybe having a more efficient way of life. And to kind of hammer home that point, the average person in the UK at the moment spends more than a day a week online. That's crazy. That's 24 hours a week on your smartphone, which is what most of the online is at the moment. And that's why we're getting things from like Apple in regards to reports in your screen time to try and cut it down like an addiction. And I recently got a Google Pixel, and one thing that I noticed with their kind of UX and UI, rather than notifications being blasted at me on my kind of lock screen, they've got nice little icons at the bottom just to tell me that there's something that I need to see, but you do it in your own time. I'm not going to shout at you about it. And that, I think, was the key thing for me of tech's not trying to shout at me, it's there when I need it. It's an enabler for me to have a more comfortable way of life. So where does marketing come in on all of this, and how should we treat what we're doing within kind of the wider piece? Well, for me, it's about making sure that we don't obstruct and detract, because ultimately, if we're trying to get a more coherent, fluid way of life, having an ad come at the wrong point to kind of slow us down or to get in the way is the complete opposite thing that we should be trying to do. So, for example, if Simon sends his route to his car, he gets into his car, tries to get his sat-nav to go, and an ad appears, for example, that's obviously going to be the wrong thing to do because it's kind of hindering him from doing what he wants. So we need to be relevant. We need to be showing things at the most relevant point in people's journeys. And I've kind of put 3 steps into how I think we can do this. And these are conversations we're having with our clients at the moment. So it's very much a current thing, but we may not necessarily get to where Simon is in 5 years' time just yet. Step one is to understand your audience's moments of receptivity. So customer journeys generally, people sometimes class them in quite a linear fashion. So if you're thinking about Simon's journey that day, that's not going to happen exactly the same thing every day. He might do something slightly different. He might check something slightly different on his phone. There's so many variables to kind of a customer journey. So this is something that actually Deloitte put together. And it's a wheel which kind of goes, it flips it around the other way, and it goes based on human intent. So you've got around the edge, you've got adjust, listen, support, transact, propose. And these are different behaviours that humans could interact, could do. Within that, we've got then touch points and different channels that they potentially might want to interact with. And you can go even deeper to think about what messaging maybe they want to do or what functionality they want to carry out. And this, for me, is a much more accurate way of looking at customer journey as opposed to it being a linear thing. And then you can go a step further and start mapping it out about kind of the different touch points in regards to the different behaviours that they're trying to do. They might be wanting to engage, transact, share. And within that, there's different channels and different things within it. So it can become quite complicated. So for me, about trying to simplify it a little bit more, you just got to kind of ask yourself and do the necessary research in the context of Simon is, when is Simon likely to want to purchase a smart fridge? And that's where you really need to dig into your users from a qualitative and quantitative perspective. So some examples might be his old fridge has broken. He's getting his kitchen refitted, for example. And maybe slightly kind of less obvious, because it's a smart fridge, is maybe when he's run out of a key grocery, like milk. Because if a smart fridge can order it for you, it's solving a problem that he didn't realise he had. So if you start to kind of think about the kind of moments of receptivity in that sense of where we think he could be receptive, we then need to translate his behaviours and the things that he's doing on a day-to-day into signals that we can then use to start kind of activating our campaigns. So going a step further here, so if Simon adds milk to his shopping list, then we can assume that he is nearly out or already out of milk. So if I was to kind of dig that deeper, this is the behaviour, is Simon adding milk to his shopping list. And the signal is that he's nearly out or already out of milk. And we are making the assumption that if he is out of milk, he is a higher propensity to want a smart fridge. So then step 3 is then aspiring to be predictive within that. So going a step further, we can predict that Simon will be receptive to purchasing a smart fridge around the time he ran out of a key grocery. So then we can start to think about, okay, what media channel would he be wanting to see? And if you've got the data to prove that maybe he asked for that in the morning at breakfast time, we can make an assumption that maybe an email on his work email could come in, and that could be at a point where he's receptive to that sort of information. Now, this is obviously a little bit pie in the sky because there's lots of different data points, lots of different companies that potentially could be involved at the moment, and we know it's not as seamless as potentially we would like it to be. So data politics, I think, on that note, could be a bit of a limit into regards to the potential of what we can do here. So we're thinking about Cambridge Analytica and the recent scandal surrounding that. It shows that data is still very much at people's heart. I think data being shared amongst other people without knowing, people kind of, from a human level, think of it as maybe an invasion of privacy. And it's something that I'm curious to see whether that would be the case for maybe our children's generations. Would they feel the same way about it if they know that that data is enabling them to have a more comfortable life? Google are kind of, what they're doing to try and overcome this is trying to own as many touch points as possible. So they've got Gmail, they've got Android, they've got search engine, they've got all of these different touch points to try and build up this really nice rich picture of what people are doing. Now what happens when the limitations of Google kind of comes into play? So Google won't, I can't see anytime soon offering groceries, for example. So how does that then start to talk with maybe a supplier that does do it? That's where the politics comes in. That's when the partnership comes in, as Sandy was mentioning earlier. But for the time being, I found an app actually on Google Pixel, or any app really, on Apple as well. Is some people might know it as If This Then That. What it does is it ties in kind of APIs from one company or one application to another, so it allows them to talk to each other. So for example, I've done recently, there's a BMW one which allows me to send a text message to my wife when I leave work automatically, which is really cool. It doesn't work very well, actually, so it's not that cool. But, so I have to do it manually just to be safe, which kind of ruins the point. Yeah, then there's lots of them. There's Instagram talking to Twitter and all these other things. And this is really cool and allows us to have this way of a more seamless customer experience. But where does it end? We can't keep doing it for every single little touch point and us kind of allowing and giving permission to these companies to talk to each other all the time. Is there going to be a time where this becomes a little bit more fluid? I don't know is the answer to that. But whatever happens, and however that politics and the tech capabilities kind of increase, I think the future is very much an experience based on what I was saying to our behaviour and our relationship with tech. I think we want it to enhance our experiences as opposed to obstruct it. And I think whilst we wait to see the data and tech infrastructure evolve in the next 5-10 years, which I'm sure it will, I think we might have to kind of settle for buying milk the old-fashioned way. Thank you very much.